Hi everyone. Okay, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed having lunch in the garden. For those of you, I guess you all wish to stay here and follow this session on small, medium enterprises in adaptive heritage reuse processes. If not, if you prefer to go to the formal, informal ones, you need to be upstairs. Okay. Hi everyone. So this session will focus on the possible roles of small, medium enterprises and how they can stimulate, innovate, accelerate different types of adaptive heritage reuse processes. Of course, this touches upon many different topics like circular economy, entrepreneurship, and we also have a very diverse pool of speakers, which I will introduce to you. I will ask all the speakers to just come on stage. The format is as followed, so everyone will present 15, max 15 minutes. I will also give a small subtle sign in order to guard the time. And then it's followed by a discussion that will be moderated by Luc Boules, professor at our Department of Planning and Mobility. So let me briefly introduce you all. The next slide. So first we have Katarzyna Sadowy. Maciej will not be joining us on stage today, but he's in the room. Will you be joining? Okay, perfect.
If there is a space.
Yeah, then I think, no, then we need one more chair, I think, but it will be okay. I wasn't certain. Yeah. So Maciej and Katarzyna, they are both from the Praga Lab in Warsaw, teaching at the university. And Praga Lab is one of our OpenHeritage labs and focusing on connecting intangible, tangible heritage with the citizens and culture of the Praga district. Yes. Thank you. And then we have Eijekelenburg. Anne, she is working two different jobs at the moment, or combining them. She works for Miss Miyagi, and Miss Miyagi, perhaps some of you might know it. They were also involved in the CLIC project. It's a consultancy firm in Flanders, and they really focus on adaptive heritage reuse with social impact. So it's a new type of consultancy firm. And she combines this with coordinating the Stadsmakers Fund. So it's one of the first, or it is actually the first cooperative fund for funding actually adaptive heritage reuse projects in Flanders. Yeah. It's just starting, so you're warming up, but she will tell more about it. And then we have Ruba Saleh. She's from the Brussels Management School. She has been involved in the CLIC project, Bicultuur, and she's also currently coordinating C-SHIP, a cultural entrepreneurship training program in Brussels, focusing on really enhancing and empowering cultural entrepreneurs. And this program, I think, will start in September of this year. So the aim is really to teach new skills and to enhance cultural entrepreneurship. And then we have Pietro Elisei. In the garden, we briefly talked, and I mentioned that to me he seemed like the Beyoncé of urban planning. But maybe that's not the case, I don't know. Pietro is an expert in regional spatial planning, has his own consultancy firm, URBASOFIA, and has also extensive experience working on different types of heritage projects. So thank you all for being here. And then, of course, last but not least, my professor, Luc Boules. Luc Boules, he's the professor at our planning department, and he will moderate the conversation. That's it. So maybe on a practical note, you see here,
Now it's on. Yeah, it works. Thank you. So, of course, thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss one of the lab in the broader context. In fact, it was a very eventful time for us, and I'll try to share the experience as briefly as I can within this 10-15 minutes Hannah mentioned. You can also see names of two our colleagues who are no less involved in this project. So to say a few words about the area we worked in, it's part of the capital city. Still, it has a lot of characteristics of a non-capital city. It's the other side of the river. It's the other side of the city, not only during last 20, 30 years, not only after the war, but traditionally for a century or longer neglected and a bit underdeveloped. I say a bit because it has been underdeveloped in terms of cultural centers, quality of life, but it was very much developed in terms of economics, in terms of investments. It is what Praga district was built on, and as you can see, this heritage, which still exists in Praga, is linked to economy. It's linked to industry, to large factories, but also to several small enterprises, to several small economic ventures which accompany usually these huge manufacturing investments since the Industrial Revolution. So there is a lot of heritage, tangible and intangible, related to work and working class, if I still use this term I do not like so much, also craft, art, creative, and all that comes with it, which is not so very attractive. Hard work, low wages, poverty, difficulties, social difficulties, and also this kind of make and do culture, which also can be inspiring for today, we believe. How we worked, apart from hard and with pleasure at the same time, of course. We worked with several people, including small enterprises located in Praga. We worked within the framework of workshop, and there are two main areas for the workshop. One is a specific place, and this is the result. These are the recommendations. If it's on our website, but if any one of you is interested in a printed copy of a shorter version, but in English, we still have a few copies with us. But today I would like to, thank you, to talk more about our cooperation with entrepreneurs in Praga. For the workshop and also for a very specific exhibition, Living Memory exhibition, part of the OpenHeritage project we had there. So let's look at the true heroes of our presentation, at entrepreneurs of Praga. As I said, we worked with several of them, and we would like to present just three as a sample of what is happening there. This is a company which is based also on a heritage entrepreneurial venture, meaning trade. They deal with vintage, so they also deal in heritage design. And what is important is that they try to make new heritage based on this already existing one. They try to create a network of this new tradition as Praga district being the place to go to look for the vintage design in Warsaw. And in part, they are successful. It's also known beyond Warsaw itself. In red, you see the highlights. You see their strong strong side, but also for small enterprises, there are always problems, there are always difficulties. So for them, as we learned, it was that they couldn't deal so well with legal aspects. They had problems with all formalities and so on, and they also weren't so good at marketing, at promotion, what they did. This is, if I say our favorite, maybe I say too much, but we like them enormously. This is a small company, a family business of 3 siblings, and it is also a continuation of a Warsaw heritage traditional craft of confectionery, of making handmade chocolates of high quality. So we did a co-creative workshop with them when they worked with the public, and they created some new chocolate forms based also on heritage existing design. So they're very good at what they do, but still, as a small and new company, they need to build a stable situation. They need a stable group of clients, and they also need a stronger brand. Maybe a brand not only built on their own, but a brand connected to something bigger. Maybe a brand of an area, maybe a brand called Made in Praga, who knows. But what they give to the society, what they create apart from this very, very charming, sweet products, it's kind of quality and elegance, because I said the heritage of Praga is often perceived as dirty, of low quality. It's the problem of Praga that it doesn't look attractive for several people. So they create something which is affordable for many and yet of very high quality and still related to the reinterpreted heritage. Another interesting example is a cooperation between several small businesses. It's called Pracownia Wschodnia, which means Eastern Workshop. They do several things there. They are artists, entrepreneurs, and so on. What is interesting, this is this municipally owned space. So there is a relation already between the small business and municipality. And they did the renovation themselves. And I assure you, it looks very elegant, not only on the pictures. It is a very nice space, but it is done with very simple things, quality, but really with no expensive ventures. These nice photographs are taken also by one of these 2 ladies with whom we cooperated, Paulina Mrowska, who is photographer, part of this cooperation. The other is the designer of the chess that was part of our exhibition. What do they need? What is their fear? What is their problem? What could be their problem? They need stability. Maybe municipally owned premises would give them stability, but as all these entrepreneurs, they could struggle and they could need some support. So what we learned, what small enterprises have to offer in heritage area and also in terms of this intangible heritage, that they can bring in their creativity, their point of view, their ideas. They are people who can think about things that either us as our Open Heritage team, nor the municipality, nor other people would ever think about. They can help or create new or redefinition of heritage values, that they can really continue the heritage, not only preserve it, both in tangible and intangible terms. They are small businesses, so if they choose a place, they really tend to stand there. They want to stay there. They are long-term partners in anything that could be planned by the municipality. They are more stable partners in terms of what they want than sometimes large companies. They didn't have these very high expectations. We heard about that in the Romanian context, that sometimes the problem is that people want the elegant palaces instead of something simple and of nice quality. They have reasonable expectations towards heritage spaces. They offer cooperation and the networking, and they are more and more involved in circular practices and circular businesses. And in terms of community, we often think about NGOs as the heart of the community. Small businesses can be heart of community also. They have clients who are also community, that they buy services or things. It doesn't mean that it's only commercial venture. It is a relation, a human relation, which is also very important. What can they need from the municipality, from the public administration? What can it support could be useful or significant? Stability. I would say stability, stability, and stability. If I would say to choose three things which are needed, they struggle, they have problems with the cash flows, they need more flexibility. For example, if the municipality or the owner of the space can wait, for example, for a month or two for the rent to be paid, it can be crucial for a company like that. They often are focused on what they do so much that they are unable to learn about financial or legal aspects. They need support to do that. And the problem is also that we often say in heritage areas we need new jobs, but small enterprises often have limited ability in this area. And also in making this step to leave their apartments, we call it leaving the kitchen, because sometimes the craftspeople literally work and create and produce small manufacturing in their kitchens. And to go outside, to be also visible in the city, they also need some help, some push, some incentive to do that. And it was also already mentioned that sometimes it can be impossible or difficult for them to compete with larger companies. So they also need the support with that. But looking at the bigger picture, what can be expected in broader terms in this transition, I think we all, at least in this beautiful place, we see is needed. We need new forms or new support for the democracy, which is in such a difficult situation right now in several countries for several reasons. We need economic transition towards something which is not catastrophic in the next years, also related with the just society and the climate crisis. Can small companies play in Warsaw, in Praga, elsewhere, a role in that? We believe they can, but not on their own. Elinor Ostrom was already mentioned twice, I believe, today, and I'm very happy to be the third person to do that. I also believe that in Europe we have the situation that we really have the tools, the mechanisms for the common management. It's called local government and cooperation of the local government with NGOs and small businesses. So for the bakery, I mentioned at the beginning, now we have a prospective tenant. We don't know yet what happens next. But as you can see, this is a tenant which wants to start a business based on the former NGO, who is very involved in something which is, in my opinion, one of the most important things right now, support for Ukraine and for Ukrainian refugees. They deal with circular business and they fell in love with the place. So what else can be expected? Maybe some kind of cooperation with other sectors, including public sector. So I guess there is not a dream, but a very tangible and very concrete proposition for this specific place in Praga. Thank you.
Thank you very well. Thank you very much, Katarzyna. You explained very well, a short question, you explained very well what the SMEs could do for heritage, and it's mostly intangible heritage. But now the other way around, there's a two-way connection. What can heritage do for SMEs?
I guess that it gives them identity, the heritage, and all companies we cooperated with, they have the continuity with heritage one way or the other. In many ways, I won't elaborate on that because I know this is not the point of the question. But the role of the heritage place, of the heritage work, of the heritage even relations and networking based on heritage of work, of heritage of place, heritage of design too, can give the identity, the brand, and also the relations. I guess this is also about the relations between businesses and clients, between businesses and communities and municipalities.
Yeah. Probably we will come back to that later in the discussion again, because I'm very curious again. But we had a pre-talk before, and what I wrote down in the pre-talk with Pietro is the true value of cultural heritage. I'm pretty much, I would like to know what it is, true value of heritage. Pietro, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You start with so difficult question. Anyway, I will try to explain this through my presentation. Should just, okay. Yeah, the role of cultural heritage in urban development. I mixed in this presentation my experience. I'm director of a small and medium enterprise that is working on applied research, URBASOFIA. And this topic of cultural heritage came into our business in the last 5 years. I mean, we are urban planners, specialized in strategic planning, urban regeneration. But definitely there was a change. I mean, because as it was said even this morning, I don't know if this is basically what is going to happen, that a big actor, supranational actors like the European Commission is investing in heritage and is asking us how to make heritage driver for sustainable development. And we have to start. I stand up because, I mean, I don't see from any position, I don't see basically. Okay. You have to think to a cultural heritage contextualized within a process. This is important. No? It's not to take it as a concept, but to insert within an action plan, a strategic plan. In this way, we can start to use it. And it is important the how, and this is not easy, how we make it practical. But first of all, we have to start to have an ample definition of what is cultural heritage. And second point, even to understand that in a process, I mean, we don't have, as the project officer of the Commission very well stated this morning, not just the vertical governance, but all the stakeholders. I mean, all the rest of the horizontal governance, where actually we have even as small and medium enterprises that can give a very important role, can have a very important role in the terms of giving perspective, giving organization, and all these kind of necessary elements for a good planning process that could be effective and efficient. This is a definition that we developed for an ESPON project. And basically, I put this pizza, I mean, a little bit of nationalism, but the pizza is, I live in Romania, but I'm Italian. I mean, you already recognize from my accent, I think. And the pizza got the UNESCO, it's UNESCO heritage, but the art of making pizza is UNESCO heritage. Again, methodology, how? How do I make things? So intellectual capital, cultural capital, this is very important. But I would like to just read this definition we provided for this ESPON. The cultural heritage is the set of tangible and intangible assets, both inherited from the past and created in the contemporaneity. It is important, even the present. It's not something of the past, it's something of the present, and something we do in the present for the future. This is the heritage, as this temporal continuity that we have to consider. and to be used for educational, both human and natural, that through the selection operated by current societal values are considered to be preserved, to be used for educational purposes and opportunities to learn, and to be promoted as a driver for sustainable development. So for training, for development, but even sometimes we have to have a conservative approach, so case by case, not just human, but even natural. So we have to be ample, no? In space, but even in time, every time we think to heritage. That's from our experience. And of course, as I say at the beginning, I mean, there are now so central this topic that many supranational institutions are launching programs and a proposal for that. I would like to remember the UNESCO, UN, ICOMOS, ICROM. These are the main actors that are really promoting now the cultural heritage as a key element of planning process, of development planning processes. Another point that is important is to understand the evolution from the 60s, where actually we had a material-based approach. Okay, it means that this was a thing for the public interest. It was the state to take care of the cultural heritage. It was the experts working for the state, but the general interest is different from the public interest. And when we talk about general interest, we have to consider the community. And we see that through the ICOMOS and the ICROM, we had the value-based approach and the living monument heritage approach that put the community at the center of the definition of heritage. It means that we have a more inclusive, and we talk even this morning about inclusiveness as a key asset of the planning processes, into the definition of heritage. So I think that in this moment, every time we start to face a development process about cultural heritage or involving cultural heritage, we have all these three definitions that at the same time still existing. So the conservative one, the one that is putting the community in the center, the one that says that the community is even not having the continuity of management. So that's the state of play. Maybe there is even something more, but that's how we see things. And again, this is a slide where I would like to bring the point of view of the urban planners. Again, no? It was at the very beginning very focused on the object. Okay, the object was the main topic of the cultural heritage. So when you look at a specific point, a specific square or a part of the city, not thinking for parts, this is typical for the architects. You look at design, you look at technology, you look at the cultural value. Okay, but if you are an urban planner, you have to introduce within the game the people, the society. No? The relational behaviors. And it's important for me, this four corner is the stakeholders. I mean, in the stakeholder, we can understand many things. But for sure, we have to move to this. We have a problem here. I don't know why. Do I continue in this way? I don't know why. But anyway, it's a moving slide. Normally, these are really not static concepts, but this is a moving one. The place-based approach, we make it a little bit dynamic. The place-based approach is really complex and dynamic, by the way, but could be a way. No, this is a scheme that I was developing together with Daniela. She's no more there. We were experts for the Objective 6 of the European Urban Agenda that is on cultural heritage. We have been called as experts to provide tools and how to make strategic plans using the strategic processes. And then we try to explain this concept of place-based approach. Basically, we have to focus on a specific areas of the cities and to start a process, as you see, from the analysis, the process, and the selected projects, but within a context where in that place we are capable to integrate the vertical governance. I don't go because this morning they talk very well about vertical governance, but this is the most important one, the horizontal governance. So when we talk about horizontal governance, we talk about the community in ample sense. And we can talk about triple helix, where we are going to consider the academy, close to the state, to the public administration, and to the industry, but even then quadruple helix, so we can introduce the NGOs. And Here we saw, even in the presentation that was coordinated by Joop this morning, that we have different actors, foundation, NGO, small and medium enterprises. This is really a rich environment, the one of the horizontal governance, that can help a lot in this place-based approach, where actually we focus on a place, we put some limits, we put a process into that place, but then actually the game is to realize the dialogue that the vertical governance and the horizontal governance is capable to build up within this system or this ecosystem, because it's really a complex one. And this is the place-based approach that basically we propose to the European Commission as a way to prepare the strategic process for valorizing the cultural heritage. And this was basically the details of this process that it's important starting always from the problems. In planning theory, we say that problems first, and we can call it challenges, we can call it issues, but we have to start from the problems. And to understand the problems, you have to talk with the community. Otherwise, you don't have any clue about the problems, okay? And then you have to make a mapping. Stakeholder mapping was even an issue that was recalled in the morning. Yes, we have to do stakeholder mapping. We have to make mapping of places. And then basically, when we have the problem, the stakeholders, all the other one, we are going to work on the potentialities embedded in that place of the previous slides. And then we can start to define the strategic projects. Even the projects can be soft projects, can be simple projects. It depends. Even here we have to define a number of, I go very quick now through a number of case studies. This was a project where we have been involved with URBASOFIA, so as SME working in applied research, ROC, regeneration and optimization of cultural heritage in creative and knowledge cities. And basically, we tried to understand in this project, this is on Horizon 2020, how to regenerate and how to reuse specific part of the cities through an approach that is based on cultural heritage. And you see that we had very important cities, and many of them, they have UNESCO plans ongoing, so it's very difficult to intervene in a UNESCO plan area. The proposal coming from this project coordinated by the city of Bologna, municipality of Bologna, was to create this rock circle, where actually you see that when you approach a cultural heritage protected area in a city, you have to consider more components, the creative one, the green one, the security one, the knowledge-based one, the regeneration one, and the cultural one. I don't go into the details, but it's a complex approach that you have to use, so based on multi-stakeholders, on multi-knowledge, in order to have effective results in such kind of neighborhoods. And basically this is the cycle of the project that was developed in ROC, and that was based on 3 key pillars: accessibility, sustainability, and collaboration. Accessibility as autonomy, sustainability as a way of managing the transition, and collaboration as an alliance between the different stakeholders, again, the community and the many actors that are important. I'll go very... Yes, I go to the conclusions. I want just to remember that the importance of small and medium enterprises is that in this project we had to consider a mediation between the industry and cities. And we did this mediation because cities normally they don't know what kind of products they need for the heritage or for the regeneration. But basically, we had to work with the cities to help them to make their question. To ask to the industries that were partners in this project what they really need in terms of technology. This is very important mediation that we did. This was the project of Bologna. This was the case study in Lisbon. That was based, it is not working, I tell you. Then I can go even to the conclusion. In Lisbon, they were working a lot of the collective memory, so in the intangible component of the heritage, so like a way to recreate identities for urban regeneration. This was in Skopje, where actually they were working with technology, in the old bazaar. By the way, Skopje is a city that is suffering of a very bad renewal operated 10, 15 years ago. and really they destroy the heritage, but what is remaining can be really reused through this correct use of technology. Finally, I close with this point. Heritage is important, and cultural heritage is important to redefine and to make more ample the concept of sustainable development. We are close to the very classic point, I mean, society, economy, and environment, but it is more. It is really more, because actually duration, community, and knowledge are keywords that are linking sustainable development and cultural heritage. Both cultural heritage, sustainable development, no, they last on the long and medium period. So the duration is a common concept. The knowledge is the fundament for cultural heritage, but even for a tourism that is based on experience, and the community is linking tourism based on experience and sustainable development. Duration, knowledge, and community are the three key pillars that give us the sense of place. And as urban planners, this is our asset. We have to always know what is the sense of place. And if we connect the sense of place to the very classic definition of sustainable development, and this is, you see on the right, you open a lot of new perspective, the cultural landscape, the creation of identity. So you open many new domains for defining development pathway within the city, within the neighborhood. And I finish here. Thank you very much for your attention.
I see lots of new words who came up. For instance, horizontal and vertical, and linear and circular time. And your time runs counterclockwise. So that is also what is remarkable. But very shortly, what does the SMEs doing in this?
SMEs are always in this horizontal governance line. They are there. They can do many different things, but I think that the additional value is in the organization of the planning process. And even as the one that proposes innovation and new knowledge. I see what is requested to my company as an SME. They want from us organization of the process. They want us to provide innovative ideas. They want us knowledge for managing basically the planning process. And I think in this way, small and medium enterprises can be really the liaison. The liaison. I mean, it is a question of, anyway, when you are in the horizontal governance, it is an au-pair dialogue. But in this au-pair dialogue, the SME can be a liaison, a driver of this dialogue, because they have to be competitive in comparison with the other kind of juridical persons involved.
Okay, clear. We come back to that later as well. I want to go further on the horizontal governance. What can, because you focused it on local governments, what can Europe do for horizontal governance? But perhaps Ruba can have the final word, but you have the floor for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yes, I was not prepared to speak about horizontal governance, but maybe we will come to the point. I wanted to share with you today two experiences of cultural entrepreneurial journeys throughout two Horizon 2020 projects and a capacity building program which was built specifically based on the results on the first one of these projects, which is CLIC. Pietro was actually rightly speaking about how cultural heritage contributes to sustainable development, and this is something we could all agree on, and there's a very rich literature on this regard. When we started working in CLIC, we had a new challenge, which was back in 2017, how to assess the contribution of cultural heritage to the circular economy, and how can we create interdependencies between the two, knowing that Europe as a continent is thriving to become the first a carbon-free continent in 2050. So throughout our work, we were happy to see, of course, the Green Deal coming out. And in 2020, there was also the renovation wave, which was putting axe and stressing on the fact of the importance of adaptive reuse as a contribution to the circular economy. In the meanwhile, ICOMOS, Europa Nostra, and other colleagues were starting also to publishing important reports on the link between adaptive reuse and cultural heritage. As a partner in CLIC, ICHEC is a business school, together with Professor Christian Ost here with us today and another colleague from ICHEC. We started thinking of how to design a business model which is suitable for an adaptive reuse of cultural heritage, which encompasses three things together. The historic urban landscape, so we're not just speaking about a building or a site in itself, but about a multi-layered perspective, which has to do with a human-centered approach and also the ecological paradigm. And trust me, it was not an easy task. We went through a lot of sustainable business models and strongly sustainable business models. Before we dive into what kind of business models we opted for, we started co-designing workshops with the local community in all our four case studies, which was Salerno, a coastal city in Italy, Rijeka, a coastal city in Croatia, Pachus de Zwiger is a cultural institution in Amsterdam, I'm sure many of you know, and the rural region in Västra Götaland region in Sweden, we had 4 localities. So we asked participants from these 4 areas to map through their 5 senses their perception of their cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. At the same time, in tandem, we mapped the economic landscape, so we tried to understand how the local authorities represent the existing cultural heritage and how it is connected to the local context. And there were great discrepancies between how the community perceived the existing cultural heritage and how the local authorities did. And this is why we started designing the circular business model, which is based on the flourishing business model, which brings back value creation not only in economic terms, but also in social and environmental perspectives. So what we did is to go back to the assets which the local community worked on in terms of perceptions mapping, and they were very knowledgeable about. And we asked them about the needs, how they would like to reuse these assets. So we ran co-design workshops where during 3 intensive days, we worked on the different topics related to business model development, which is first of all desirability, to test whether the solution was desirable by the community, feasibility, was it really doable in terms of available resources, and finally viability, was it economically sound and viable, and what kind of positive impacts it could generate in the community. This was a very interesting business development and innovation process, and I can say that in Salerno, for example, the municipality opted for an open call because they were very afraid about trust issues. While in the other locations, it was open participation, so people just registered and came to the workshop. I will draw some lessons later on. I would like to move now to our second experience in cultural entrepreneurship. So under the framework of Horizon 2020 project Bikultur, Beyond Cultural Tourism, ICHEC is again leading on business development for innovative circular tourism solutions for 6 heritage sites with our 6 regions. So the first one is in Basilicata in Italy, the second is in the rural area in Larnaca in Cyprus, the third is in Aragon in Spain, the fourth is in Vojvodina in Serbia, the fifth is in the region of Västra Jutland region in Sweden, and the last one is a common road between northeast Romania and Moldova. So practically we launched an open call for innovators, public sector, private sector, SMEs, and actually even individuals who are interested in proposing innovative solutions for their regions according to the listed innovation areas, so rural co-living, sensorial heritage experience, contemporary meanings of heritage, spiritual travel experience, nature as heritage, etc., etc. The call is still open, so hopefully by Thursday we will receive the applications from all these 6 regions, and we aim to have 3 participating teams from each region. By team, I mean a minimum number of 4 people willing to come to Brussels and work hard. Unfortunately, yes, we will be working hard from 9 to 6 at least into developing their business model. So the idea is that during the intensive 3 days, we will be working on better understanding the heritage site and connected to circular cultural tourism, building again desirable, feasible, viable, and resilient solutions, and finally on how to deploy the solution. Why we're doing so? Because we would like also afterwards to go into an acceleration period where we will accompany these SMEs. They're not all, by the way, SMEs. Some of them are individuals who are interested, gathered 3 friends from different disciplines to work on the solution. And at the end of the process, we would like to invite impact investors in order to contribute to further develop the solution. We have a small award from the European project. Of course, it's nothing if you want to develop an important, innovative solution. The third message I would like to convey is based actually on the experience of CLIC. We started reflecting on how creative professionals from the cultural and from the cultural heritage disciplines are, and indeed they are very much, but we also noticed that there is a concrete lack of skilling and upskilling in topics related to business management, managerial issues, governance issues, marketing, and partnerships and networking. And this is why we started reflecting on launching a professional training program on cultural entrepreneurship at ICHEC. We all know that 2021 was the International Year for Sustainable Development and the Creative Economy, and we also know that, maybe you know, that the Chief of Creative Economy at UNCTAD, which is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, started the year by saying that creativity is the answer we've been looking for. Now it's the time to embrace and invest in it. And actually, the European Commission as well has launched a great and big partnership on upskilling. It's the Creative Pact for Skills. I'm very happy to say that CSHIP, our training program, is part of this Pact for Skills, and I do invite you to submit your candidature because there are great cultural players around the table. So what we are going to do, in CSHIP, we plan to welcome people who would like to launch a cultural enterprise, or those who are already cultural entrepreneurs and have difficulties, especially now after COVID, and they would like to reinvent their entire business model or some part of their projects and activities. The project is addressing both individuals and organizations. We know that cultural and creative sectors is a very large domain, so we tried to narrow it down to 5 sectors, which is cinema and audiovisual production, cultural institutions and museums, built heritage, adaptive reuse, so adaptive reuse is there, performing arts and design. So for individuals, we have the cultural entrepreneurship training starting in September 1st, while for organizations, we're more going towards hackathon format or design sprints, if you wish. What we are having in our models is practically 5 topics which we started disseminating in the format of free webinars. So we will be speaking about business model innovation. We will be speaking, of course, about sustainability and positive impact, exponential technologies and how to use them in a fair way. We will be speaking about governance, as you mentioned, and finally about ecosystem and partnership building. We found it very difficult to explain from one hand to the business sector why it's important and valuable to have creatives on board, and we found it also difficult to explain to creatives why it's important to have some business knowledge. So we started asking creatives about what are their interests and their needs, and we designed 5 different personas which respond to the 5 categories, explaining why they would like to join such a professional training program. So the training will be in 20 half days from the 1st of September to December 13th. It received a subsidy from the region of Brussels from the Fair Economic Transition because they believe cultural and creative industries can contribute to the ecological transition of the region of Brussels. Unfortunately, it will be in French this time, but we hope to open it up in English in the future. And I just wanted to share a very final remark about this journey. I will stand up because I'm not seeing very clearly. What we learned, and we will continue to learn, that it's really very important to listen more to innovators and entrepreneurs, understand their needs and challenges, because it's really critical, and we keep asking them to engage in our participatory processes, and people seriously don't have time. It's very important to go for co-design and tailored processes because, as you know better than me, challenges are very different from one context to other. We need always to leave in a safe space for people to engage with us and discuss in a trustful environment. We need to give room for different rhythms and contributions. Most importantly, we need to empower teams beyond the legacy of Horizon 2020 because life goes on. And upskilling and capacity buildings are crucial. In terms of innovation, we need to take into consideration preparedness levels. Not everyone is an innovator, not all people are entrepreneurs. We need an enabling environment, whether it's a public infrastructure, a private infrastructure, or a collaboration between a multiplicity of actors. And we always need to take into consideration the availability of resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruba. At least it is again clockwise, so that would be nice. But regarding the hackathon, I always thought that cultural heritage is something of Fernand Braudel, the longue durée, the long time. And now we are dealing with hackathons. And I thought that the hackathons were things where you have 24 hours, not from 9 to 6, but 24 hours, 3 days, without sleep. But okay, now it is from 9 to 6. But and I'm very curious of what would be the result. But do you have goals? What next? What is done with the result? Do you have what is going to be there?
Yes, I totally agree that cultural heritage needs time, and it's a very long and important it's important to provide time for a lengthy participatory process. And we do know that we're not going to resolve everything in a 3-day hackathon. The 3 days are meant to develop the business model, but then we will need time to test it. And this is why we still have 4 months of an acceleration period. And of course, it will not be enough, but it will be a period to help these innovators to stand on their feet, come back to us and discuss challenges and try to solve it together, and then to connect them with existing structures in their countries to keep being incubated there and continue developing their project.
Okay. Sure that some people of the audience would be very nice to join with you, but we have the final word of Anne, Miss Miyagi. I'm still curious of what this stands for, Miss Miyagi. But she has got the final solution, I would say.
You always start with an interesting question, Miss Miyagi. Yeah, in fact, I especially want to tell the story of the Stadsmakersfonds, but it starts with Miss Miyagi, and Miss Miyagi, to say shortly, is like the feminine version of Mr. Miyagi, the Karate Kid trainer who has developed a kind of different technique of facing your opponent with another attitude and other results as well, and in an innovative, fresh way. And that's maybe also why it's not Mr. but Miss. It's maybe as opposed to the masculine, conservative style maybe that we know in some parts of the real estate world. Yeah, that's a short answer to your question. So Miss Miyagi and Stadsmakersfonds, I will... Yeah? That's better, okay. Well, I've chosen to start my presentation with 2 pictures of myself, as I'm the fund manager of the Stadsmakersfonds City Maker Fund. And usually I do this presentation, or when I talk about the Stadsmakersfonds, I do it in collaboration with Michiel van Baalen, known to many of you, who was also invited today, but not in the country. And Michiel van Baalen, is founder and works at Miss Miyagi, but is also the founder of the Stadsmakersfonds. And we work as sister organizations, the Stadsmakersfonds and Miss Miyagi. We work together in our projects. We have a different angle of looking at the project, but the same objective of facilitating real estate projects with a positive impact, and often reuse of sites of heritage to enable transitions or sustainable development on sites. So that's the introduction, and I'll start the story of both our organizations from Miss Miyagi. Was SME, as is the Stadsmakersfonds, and Miss Miyagi is about 5 years old and runs about 25 reuse projects per year. As you see some pictures here of what they've done in the past years, where they play a role as a sort of a project manager on high level of making these projects happen by connecting stakeholders to each other, by advising owners of buildings, of sites, by coordinating even the building project and the building process. And here I have a presentation with a lot of images. Maybe you're tired after a long day already, so just look at the images. I think they speak for themselves. Those are 2 projects that Miss Miyagi was involved in. One is the Hoorn in Leuven. The Hoorn is a monument heritage. It's the oldest brewery of Stella Artois in Leuven, so the foundation, a little bit of the beer culture in Belgium. But it was abandoned since '97, and kind of when you went into the building, a nightmare, lots of problems, an abandoned building, asbestos, and so on and so on. But still, by the methodology, the process that was developed and supported by and executed by Ms. Miyagi. This, De Horen now is a 10,000 square meter hub community in the heart of the community, a center where you have co-working spaces, where you have events, where you have a restaurant, and also residences. Really in the heart of the community. It's something I heard or read in your presentation, and I think that comes back in many of the cases that I will show today. A second example is Hal 5, also in Leuven. It's you see on the left-hand side the structure. It's a building where they used to repair, maintain rail trains. Also a monument, and there in a like a bottom-up, implying the neighborhood kind of process. It's now also a community place where you have where you can eat, where you have events, where there's movement, like a circus school, some economic activity as well. So it's now a very vibrant place where community finds itself and meets, where people meet each other, even beyond the neighborhood where Hal 5 is located. And those two cases, De Horen and Hal 5, they led, the analysis of those cases and other cases led to a kind of conclusion that often the business model of these kinds of projects and finding the finances to make them happen are the bottleneck, or are the challenge to overcome. You need a very specific business model to make this work. You need to show to, like, bank, if you want to get a bank loan, to show how you can reduce risks in those projects before you can even get a bank loan. So that whole kind of business model has been developed by running these projects, and in both projects there was a solution found. In De Horen there were 7 entrepreneurs in Leuven who took the initiative to give a push to this project. In Hal 5, it was something more crowdfunding-like process that was behind it. But the two projects show that it's not easy to make these kind of projects happen in the conventional kind of way. And it showed that there was a financing platform or structure needed to give breathing space to this kind of project, or to develop more of those types of projects. And that was in fact the start of the City Makers Fund, the Stadsmakers Funds. There was a period of 2 years of analysis of cases and of exploring different kind of models, but in the end the choice was made after this analysis to start up a cooperative fund aimed at reusing unique buildings, and often also heritage buildings with a focus on added value, not only financial, but certainly for the society and for sustainable development and so on. So here in this slide I highlighted 4 of the aspects of DNA of the City Makers Fund. The left one is reviving or reusing underused sites and making them relevant again in our society. Then with an added value, I already mentioned that, not only financially, making the business case work, but also having adding that value for our society. Connection is a key word in connection and community, maybe in all of the projects. It's connection, building partnerships and involving end users or stakeholders from the beginning on in a project, connecting them to each other. That's part of the DNA, but also connecting a space or a building to its environment. The projects are not only about the building that's there, but really making it work in its environment, other buildings, neighborhood or nature around it. Also the different types of use. It's not single, we never go for single-use kind of solutions. It's always mixing up all kind of things. That is also one of the bases of making the business model work. And then the last one is no hit and run. Hit and run is a terminology that is sometimes used in the world of real estate, of quickly going in, redeveloping and selling. And maybe I come back to what you said earlier, Ruba, with this city maker fund, Stadsmakersfonds, we want to buy time for projects, to not have an end result in 2 or 3 years, but to develop something on the long term that goes somewhere to a certain horizon, but can still be flexible and can be adapted to whoever comes in and maybe goes out also in the process. And while working on these kind of projects, we see that the identity that an existing building offers seems to be a good feeding ground for societal transition projects that we see now in the projects that we run, that they're on top of policy challenges, and when there's a new subsidy coming out, we see, okay, this really matches with what we're doing. It seems like it happens automatically, that transition wants to find its space in those kinds of cooperative projects that we're starting up. And I'll go quickly through the 4 projects that we have, just show you some images to make it tangible, what we're doing. There are 4 projects up to now, but we want to scale up to 8 or 10 projects in the coming years. The brewery, the Ridder in Antwerp, it's this building, it's on the inventory also of heritage buildings, a brewery like the Horen in Leuven, but kind of different typology, where we will develop with partners who are already on board. Again, a place at the heart of the community, socio-economic functions with focus on well-being in a very densely populated urban area. This is the spaces that we have there, and this is an image of what it would become in the future. We have the designers at work now, working on that building. A second one is an office, a more economic function. Like in the middle of this picture is the facade of this office, but behind it, it's like a very boring 80s kind of building. It doesn't have a lot of identity, but we want to bring it in the project. Where we are creating a circular hub in Mechelen. Third one is an old school that is going to be reused as a center for healthcare. Oh, and the rest of my presentation is lost, but there was an. I'll try to tell you the rest of the story without the slides. There was a 4th building. A building where leather treatment, there used to be leather treatment, a very magnificent building in the midst of nature. Well, that we recently bought, and we are starting that project now. So I think my next slide was going to explain a little bit that we are a corporation, and the corporation is also at the heart of what we do. We now have 86 people who have invested in the City Makers Fund, who all believe in that idea that we have of treating these existing buildings with a unique identity as a common, in fact. So, all people, the 86 people, I think, believe that we don't want I've lost my, just because this is also, and it goes like that, no. No, but I'll just improvise because I know the story. So we have about 86 people today. I received an email today that someone new has invested in the City Makers Fund who believe in what I've just explained to you, and who have put their money together in a cooperative fund, and with that money we can buy those sites, we can start up studies, but also it provides a kind of insurance, not really an insurance, but assures banks and other partners, that there's a foundation there for the project. In fact, we facilitate the start of the project, and it has a kind of a snowball effect. More partners will get involved. Also, the more conventional partners trust the kind of setup that we made financially. And then my last slide was a conclusion where I wanted to share that with those projects of the City Makers Fund, we don't want to come out as problem solving, a kind of problem solving cooperation. In fact, we that nightmare that I talked about in the beginning of the presentation of the Horen and a building with all kinds of problems and then heritage and all the administration that comes with that. We don't function like that. We see buildings more with their opportunities that are inherent in the building, and with our instruments that we developed, we try to make that happen. And we see that the dynamics and the energy, yeah, it grows and grows once we start with the project, and it's not a problem. So it's not a problem-solving kind of attitude, and we see then that the identity that is inherent in the buildings that we or in the sites, the site here in Kesselo also, it doesn't have a kind of a grandeur about it, but there's something about that site also that makes that it attracts people and it attracts interesting ideas. So I think that's the story I wanted to tell you about, seeing those kind of projects as a common and using the cooperative entrepreneurship as a way of making it a common and making them owned by a community of people who've invested in the Stadsmakersfonds, but also of the partner stakeholders that we in the beginning already involve in a project and consider as end users. So we call them end users, but they're stakeholders that we involve from the beginning. And that's also so it's both ways, a cooperative way of working, and then building up the partnerships in very early stages of a project.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Sorry for the inconvenience, but I had the privilege to look at all your slides this morning, and I loved them very much. Nevertheless, one quick question before we start, have some discussion. You said no hit and run, but you want to do 10 projects with 2 people. How can you manage that? You said we want to have 8 to 10 projects, and we are 2, but we don't want to do a hit and run. So do you work 24 hours 7 or something like that?
Almost. In fact, even I'm alone now for the moment in the city. We have a board of directors, 7 persons, and then myself as a coordinator. But the way we make those 8 to 10 projects work, and even the 4 projects right now, is that we work with our sister organization, Miss Miyagi, as a project manager, and it's Miss Miyagi who has all the expertise in these kind of projects. It's also Miss Miyagi who has the network of potential partners or of problem owners, people having those kinds of sites of buildings and not knowing what to do with them. So it's in fact the work and the 24 hours, maybe also work that it's mainly situated in Miss Miyagi, our partner in crime. Yeah.
Thank you. The one we didn't hear, but he said here on stage constantly with his mic, so he wants to say something, I think. Nevertheless, we've heard lots of interesting things, high-level things from Pietro, with methodology, how you do things from Ruba, and how you solve. She didn't think she's a problem solver, but I think she is. Maciej, if you hear all those nice talks, and you would have started Praga Lab again, what would you have done differently?
Maybe I'm just having a mic because I'm far away from the center of, of this conversation somehow. But, well, this is like, maybe some of us can be a bit overwhelmed by, some so many information about, and the question seems to be simple, like what small, medium enterprises can bring, or how can, be connected with heritage, and what does it mean really? So we can ask also what business can bring, and how it is interested in heritage, and probably it's interested in very many ways, it can profit from heritage directly as a developers, for instance. It can be inspired by heritage, and then it's probably more intangible issues are concerned here. But thinking about our lab, what we were doing, I think that the way we were, because we were, well, as a lab, we were experimenting. We let ourselves to experiment, so also make mistakes, because that you can really learn from this. So it's not like we were very much, obviously we would like to achieve something material, like concrete, not just like a vague experience. So, and I think what was really and that for sure I would like to repeat. So I would like to use more the form of workshops, this kind of experiment that you really try to confront directly with practitioners, with problems, with certain problems, not abstract problems, and then try to understand what they are representing simply. So what we did like this bakery case. That was very interesting, and also I think that from other side, when we're talking about, because at the first moment we were starting the lab, everybody was asking, what are you doing? What is all about? Nobody understand a word what we were saying, and it took us, I think 1.5 years or something, that people started to understand what we are really talking about, and what was really useful for this, when we were trying to materialize things, try to be as concrete as it's possible, and through this be communicative, to communicate to general public, things that they can understand really, because they cannot really understand, 90% of probably what we were talking about today, but like general public. So we used the case from this, and that was like a particular building with a certain problem, like old bakery standing, and what we can do with this, how we can approach the situation when we were not planning to sell it. We are not trying to turn it into a luxury villa, post-industrial thing, but we would like to keep it in touch, like what the content should be somehow related to the community, what they are needing, and that was that case. But also also the aspect, these intangible aspects were extremely interesting in our work, and I would like really to work more with this. Because when we engage, for instance, entrepreneurs from Praga district, and we were like very looking for kind of a situation that would bring a kind of a fun also, because it's supposed to be not too serious. So being a bit playful, like to play with heritage, to let ourselves simply, so we took, for instance, one of the cases was that there was parallelly in the Museum of Praga district, there was an exhibition of Edward Manitius, who ran in the 30s a factory of wooden boxes for sweets. And it was kind of suddenly somebody like find out this, because it was completely forgotten story. But when you see it on our website, OH, like OpenHeritagePraga.pl, there is made in Praga, like a process. So there are like some photographs, and we took so these boxes were formed in form of animals. So we took one of those, like boxes for sweets, and it was a bunny. It was blue bunny, so like a small one. So we invited this the Tadam confectionery family business, you know, and we said, let's do a workshop with people. Let's invite people from, you know, from the neighborhood, and let's make, you know, like a kind of a professional workshops, how to make this bunny cake, you know, like how to transform this box into the cake. So, and that was experiment that was the most technological one, because it appeared that making sweets, it's the really like high tech today, because, you know, to make this bunny like this ears standing, you know, that was really a challenge. Yeah. But that was, you know, playful and very interesting. And we also led those people who were very open for our, you know, approach. We created, within the project, we created them a space for experiment that they wouldn't be able to do in ordinary world. We invited also people from outside, so they learned something. You know, there was like kind of a fun situation. Also with circular sewing, for instance. So we made workshops for that. Because the Praga district is poor, so there are like a lot of places with the second hands, for instance, clothing, you know. So thinking about circularity and clothing, we thought, okay, what to do? So let's make workshops with circular sewing. So we find out like a business that, like a girl who was running a business that is dealing with circular sewing, and it was like a kind of a also fun, because and it was like a great success, in fact, because we received so many, you know, people from the district. They were so much interested, mostly women. So then now they are like trying to, you know, to like develop that, you know, together, because they meet because of our, you know, like the situation we created, you know. So I think that playing with this heritage, you know, in these intangible issues, like to be a bit soft, to be a bit like, as Ugo was saying, you know, the process, like to embrace the process, you know, not result exactly, but the result will be better, the process will be, I believe, really. So that was for us very, I think that it was very inspiring. And if I would like to repeat, you know, or do something else, I would like to very much focus on this kind of games, let's say, and maybe a bit more analyze them, you know, and to design them in the way that some strong knowledge will come up from this. Yeah.
It's clear. I shouldn't provoke you, because I know if you start.
Sorry, I can talk and talk, so that's the risk with me.
Yeah, but that's not that it is not interesting, because then the action itself becomes heritage. But you want to come in.
I just wanted to add on what you're saying, and add that I think it's amazing, since I've been working on this project, how much enthusiasm you can generate with these kind of projects. And I just want to illustrate very quickly, just 30 seconds, for this building. We did a call, nightmare kind of building, lots of problems. We did a Facebook call, who wants to do something with us with this building, and it went viral. It was shared. We had 80 people who reacted with an idea, 80 organizations who reacted with an idea. The same thing for the Impact Factory in Mechelen. That was on the level of the architects and the designers. We launched procedure to find the architect for this. But yeah, the timing, they have 1 year of time the building has to start in a very short period of time. You know, lots of challenges, things that we don't know, problems, and there were 33 teams who wanted to, who handed in, who were candidates to do this build. It was amazing. You think, okay, this thing is nearly impossible. The thing that we ask is nearly impossible, and everybody wants to be, everybody's there. the best teams or the most known teams in Flanders, they were all there to work on this building. And that's what really amazes me about these projects. That
heritage becomes fun. Okay. But I would like to go to the audience because we talk a lot. Yes.
No, sorry, I found this example actually quite exciting, but I would like to do a kind of reality check of both with the previous panel, because, you know, we're talking about business model, inclusive business model, and, you know, here is about SMEs in the cultural heritage. And we know, I mean, previously I was working for the European agencies on SMEs. One of the four most common reasons why an SME fails is because of lack of a business model. And that's a huge failure factor, which links to what you were presenting before, Ruba, when you said that the ICHEC program is about creating the business mindset. Because I'm actually wondering, the example you presented, was a business model existing, or actually we are doing an ex post business model reconstruction saying, oh yeah, they were successful and that's why. So we are kind of imposing a narrative on what we're observing, which is perfectly fine. But the question I'm asking is like, how do we develop a business model which is really convincing? Because, you know, I haven't seen, at least, I mean, I want really to play a bit of a pushing factor here. A real business model, as a business model is generally defined. And the second one is, how do we teach that? Because often in the creative and cultural heritage sector, people will tell you, I don't have time to sit and go for a formal business model education. And the one working as SMEs will say the same. And that goes to your comment, not everyone is a business person, which was the main critiques when Yunus launched the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, and everyone was saying, not just that you give money to poor, all poor will become entrepreneurs, and that was the main critiques of the microcredit. So I just want to hear some reaction on this, because that seems to be a fundamental question to me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for this question. Ruba, on?
Yes, so regarding the business model, actually, you know better than me, there are too many different typologies. So for CLIC, we did an ad hoc study and we worked on the flourishing business model. But for CSHIP, we will be using different business models, because we will start with the basic one, and then we will explain why it doesn't work, because it doesn't have any sustainability aspects incorporated within it. Then we will start working on sustainable business models. How we will arrive there, we will start from the very basics. So we will speak about value creation, we will speak about channels, we will speak about the users, we will speak about the impacts. So we will speak about every single element of the business model. And luckily enough, we have experts specialized, because ICHEC is a business school and it has 25 at least years experience in entrepreneurship, whether it's social entrepreneurship, whether it's other type like business, strictly business-oriented entrepreneurship. So yeah, this is the plan. And actually also for Biculture, we will be using a circular business model which has elements related to tourism. We've studied recent experiences from UNDP in this regards. So we're trying to look into the literature, because there is no one size fits all. So there's always a need to go back to the literature and design something tailored to each experience.
Do you want to add to that? Because your business model seems to work, or not?
Yes, I think for the Stadsmakers Funds, we've developed a business model, but for the projects as a whole. So it's not the business model for the individual SMEs that will be on board in the projects, but it's for the project as a whole. And I can tell you that developing that business model, also with the circular aspects that we want to bring into it, it's a gigantic kind of Excel thing that we really worked on it for months and months and months to integrate the principles of what we want to do in all those numbers that we are running up to, from today up to 2060. Reusing a building or a monument, in our cases, it takes about 4-7 millions to get to that point where you can really start working in the building and using the building. And those millions, you have to, also there you have to use the circular methodology. They have to come back one way or another, and then we think a lot of how can a building work, how can you have a kind of use of a building, different users, some profit sector, some non-profit, integrate them, try to think of a kind of 24/7 occupancy rate almost of a building. So we really worked on, I didn't show you the Excels, it doesn't present nicely in a PowerPoint presentation, but it's one of the foundations of what we are doing, is making the numbers work. And then the yoga studio or the coffee barista or the non-profit organization that works with children, they can flow into that business model with their own business model for sure, but that's how we work.
Every time we think about business models, it's about finance, but what I learned this morning, it is not only by finance, but also about other resources. That's why also I think the business model of Praga Lab could work. But here we've got the experts. Do you have questions?
Yeah, you have a question and also kind of a reflection also on the question of Hugo, of course. It's every case is specific. So indeed, I'm very interested by the Stadsmakersfonds, who makes a business model on, let's say, a more coherent top layer with all kinds of projects within it. That would also be something that we would prefer, perhaps even on the European level, to have such a city maker fund, but then something that can finance projects all over Europe, so have a level playing field, instead now of every city or every region having its own fund, that we could have a European fund that for instance, Romania projects could also apply for. That's a dream. Perhaps it will become reality in the future. What we also encountered in our research within OpenHeritage is that every, let's say, successful adaptive heritage reuse project has a stable source of income. So that's what you always have to look for. What will be the income source? Is it going to be a residential building that you get rent? Or is it going to be a productive space? You get rent from SMEs. And that's also a link to the role of SMEs. They can be an important function filler in buildings. So I think that, yeah, that should be something that is always case specific. And I was thinking also about one of our observatory cases, the ex-Rota print. I think Rolf knows it by heart. This building in Berlin, a very difficult building with partly cultural functions, social functions, but also, let's say, a certain element of business functions. So it's a mixed model again. And and I think one of the elements that has not been touched so far in this conference is also the linkage to other aspects. Climate adaptation, let's say the transition of the food system. What have you got? The migration. There are all kinds of, let's say, challenges that have to be tackled that also need spaces. And so you have to constantly connect all these challenges to what you want to do. And there is funds available for it. and also public funds. Again, the topic of public funds, but everything is a puzzle. And is that a business model? Yeah, if you look from a profitable way, perhaps not. But if you look at, let's say, social value, and public value, yes, you can make almost every case an inclusive business model, I think.
Okay, thank you. But broadening up the case, I thought Pietro spoke about it a little bit, but perhaps others want to add to that. Katarzyna?
Yeah, just a short addition. We did this exercise for the bakery side to build a business model, and because we are also very interested how municipally owned premises can become an important part of business models for the entrepreneurs in such an area, and they can be even crucial, as it turned out. But another important finding, that apart from the financial part, time frame is also very important, and it was very helpful, in fact, to work within this broader business model aspect of our project. And the result is that the expectations of the businesses and the imagination, let's say, of the public administration regarding the time frame for the contracts are two completely different things. And when you have business model, you can confront this situation, and hopefully after some conflicts, and we also heard in the morning, you can find the solution. Otherwise, there is a failure on both sides, and one side blames the other for this failure. So it's very important. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. What I wrote down this morning from Irina, she's sitting there, I think. She said something about big companies want big heritage, then perhaps SMEs want small heritage. I don't know what it is, the difference between big and small heritage. That would be nice to have a discussion about that. But what would be your takeaway lessons? We have to go to the politician debate here after the break. So what would be your takeaway message? Can I start with Pietro?
Yes, you want me to provide or what I was learning from the discussion, or what I want to give, because I really found this event today really giving a lot of new ideas. And basically, I would like to say, first of all, something about the question of Fugo. Fortunately, the business model is not working in that way in this case, because the metrics of development and sustainable development is completely different from the metrics of economics. So we have a lot of externalities, and fortunately we can work on benefits that we don't know at the beginning of the process, and we will discover just testing. For this reason we have many laboratories, because they are testing. We don't know. There are many things that we don't know at the very beginning. What we learn, I think, from this discussion, many things. First of all, that the cultural heritage, in order to work, has to be within an ecosystem where actually you have innovation, design thinking, you can have temporary uses, so really trying to make something, a lot of experimentation, and basically you can have even the planners that try to create this kind of liaison, this kind of strategic thinking, but they need to have the capability of adapting, that to think that we need new policies, we have to go beyond our obsolete planning systems, the deterministic approach, but to understand that this kind of practices are really fluid, and that's for the reason we have to be capable to change day by day indicators, but even objectives. So that is really a day-by-day exercise to use the cultural heritage within the city. But I think this is the challenge, and it is possible. I mean, in my opinion, the takeaway, please insist, because the cultural heritage could be really a very good way to bring back production within the European cities, to deal with the question of shrinking cities in rural regions. So continue insisting on thinking on how this cultural heritage could become the driver of sustainable development. I think it's a good way for Europe.
But then I still come back to my original question. What would then be the real value of heritage? The real contribution of heritage to sustainable, circular, adaptive, whatever, because it is becoming a very changing thing then, but perhaps the activity itself. But what are your takeaway messages, Ruba?
Yes. Maybe my takeaways are two. There is a need for awareness raising, but also to a user-friendly vocabulary, because as I mentioned, and actually Maciej was also mentioning, the fact of mixing heritage and business. There's this interesting report of colleagues from Artisans of Innovation. It was published two months ago in March, about the role of creatives in the business corporate and vice versa, and how both can cross-fertilize and learn from each other. So if we use the right vocabulary and make people better understand why a creative should use a business model and why business strategists or managers could contribute in improving the creative's knowledge in such a field, but also how creatives can improve the inspirational processes in corporate strategies, for example. Another point is it's crucial to facilitate innovation, not only to ask people to be innovative. And I have two concrete examples. A lot of the projects which we do test and experiment in the territories, but unfortunately sometimes our local partners, who often are local authorities, are not keen enough to complete the process afterwards or to implement it properly, because they're not used to participatory processes, they're not interested, or maybe the public itself is not trustful enough to engage in the process. So this is one part of the story, but the other part of the story, also at the European level, from a policy perspective, we are requested sometimes to trigger innovations, but when we go to practicalities like procurement procedures, they're very complex and they're not context-based in order to facilitate these innovations. So these are the key messages: awareness raising and facilitate innovation at the local level.
Mm-hmm. But what has that to do with heritage innovation?
What they have to do with heritage innovation? Well,
innovation to do with heritage? Because heritage is old, that is...
Heritage is old, but I would like to refer back to something which Koen van Balen was saying during the break. So heritage helps us to imagine the future, while cultural and creative industries help us to concrete the message today. So they're being innovative in making innovations accessible to the public, to the general public, and explain how things could be or could work. Maybe this
that's clear.
Explains.
Yeah, okay. Do you have last takeaway messages?
When I was thinking, I was already partly on the vibe that Ruba was on with facilitation and awareness raising. I think I'd like to add to that the takeaway message I want to give is just be courageous to take initiative, and that's the first stepping forward and having an idea and starting to develop it, and establishing that relationship of trust between initiators and facilitators is also something that you continuously have to work on when you're involved in a project or even policy developments. I think I didn't do it today, but I often end my presentation also with focusing on the human factor, that most things that we make happen or that we want to do depend on the dream of someone who wants to go somewhere, and it takes along an entire community in that direction. I think I've mentioned people like that also. I think most things that we see, that we admire, are usually born from a person who puts all her or his energy into that thing and gets it moving.
That's
and
nice, huh?
the endurance that you need to take something then up to the next step and the last step, that's what makes anything work, I think, that human factor.
Okay, thanks. We end up where we started, in Praga Lab. So,
What would be?
words.
I think that I relate very much to this approach that it's good not to look at the heritage as a burden, and people who work with heritage as problem solvers, but rather opportunity seekers. It's not always easy, but heritage is something that we already have. It's there to use, either in terms of tangible places, buildings, and so on, or skills, traditions, relations. It's really the richness of it is what is opportunity for the future. We often think that it's something that takes preservation, so it's time-consuming, it's costly, and so on. But as we saw with the examples of people who we work with in the Praga Lab, these entrepreneurs, probably they wouldn't even use the word heritage, but they work with the heritage in a way. They provide the continuity of what was into the future. We can see that they use the heritage as a driver for their businesses. So it's possible, and I guess this is also the way to move forward toward more circularity, more just society, and so on, because in the past we have a big variety of possibilities. And this is something that can be also relating to your question about innovation and heritage, and I understood your answer in this way, I hope correctly, that this is the inspiration, but also a lot of solutions which are not only the past, they are the solutions that can be transformed into innovative solutions. So the opportunity would be my message regarding the heritage.
You still want to add to that, Maciej? Yes, yes. You are.
Well, to be short, I wrote it down. So my message would be that heritage, similar a bit like Kasia said, that heritage, that we usually forgot about that, although we are very much rooted in understanding heritage as something that happened only, but it's also something to be happened, and it's something to come. So because we cannot forget, about the conditions, that it is a process really. And so my message would be that create conditions, frames for experiments and fun, and knowing social impact, founding those experiments, and that those conditions on the heritage can root the results, and failures can happen, learn from it, do not avoid them. Because that's also the problem with public administration, that there is such a big fear about the failure, that nothing is happening, only repetitions of what we already have. And this is not bring new heritage. It's only conservation, in fact, and this is, for me, it's old way of thinking about heritage. I prefer this open heritage approach, and the opening up, this field.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all the speakers. We are running very late. You can blame me. So you have less time to drink coffee. Nevertheless, thank you very much. This morning I had a small talk with your deputy mayor, And he told me that he asked me how many inhabitants are in Ghent, and I said something about 250,000. And then he said, no, that's the amount of Ukrainians we have now in Warsaw. So that's really a lot, and that is heritage itself. But okay.